God forbid someone you love gets sick enough to die. Would you want your doctors to try everything? You would, right? But what if the one drug you or they needed to stay alive just wasn't available? That is the case now for a growing number of patients, and I'm showing you why in this 4 in Your Corner special report. First responders making last-minute decisions to save lives.
We need a blood pressure.
Forced to make do with the drugs available.
We just do the best we can.
Doctors looking for different options to treat cancer.
You have to come up with plan B.
And those cancer patients waiting for treatments.
There shouldn't be 200 drug shortages.
Treatments that could be the difference between living and dying.
I got to a point where I knew I was in trouble because I couldn't eat anymore.
Julie is 3 years into her diagnosis of late-stage ovarian cancer. Now on her 6th round of chemo, treating the disease almost killed Julie.
I got a severe reaction to the carboplatin, which sent me into cardiac arrest.
Doctors switched her to a new chemo drug. It didn't work. At one point, Doxil was the preferred treatment, but it was out of supply, so Julie went on a waiting list.
How many people have died in the meantime that couldn't get the chemo they needed?
She's been on that list for 17 months.
In the meantime, every chemo has done a different damage to my body.
The drug shortage problem has skyrocketed in recent years. In 2006, 56 drugs were in short supply. In February of this year, it jumped to more than 200. Like other doctors, Jonathan Treisman has been forced to hold off on treating some patients with Doxil.
I've had patients where I really think that they would have done better had I had the drug available to them sooner.
At one point, more than half of the drugs on the FDA shortage list were considered critical.
You have acute leukemia and you don't have this standard drug, that's a real problem.
First responders also in a tough spot.
Empty. Our atropine and lidocaine empty.
Life-saving drugs used on patients with heart problems, something Mike Kruger calls a huge hardship. Kruger's been a paramedic for 20 years. He's now president of LifeStar EMS and has never seen anything like this.
It's just continued on and on.
Even standard pain medications like morphine have been in short supply for several years now.
Sometimes there's alternatives and that are good. Sometimes there's alternatives that don't work quite as well.
And Kruger says it can lead to medical mistakes. The drugs they cannot get anymore come pre-mixed, forcing them to improvise.
And now we're having to potentially draw that up and dilute it and mix it up to meet what we need.
All in a moving ambulance.
Correct.
It's the United States of America, and we can't get people the treatments that they need.
Emily Roloff is with the advocacy affiliate of the American Cancer Society, one of several groups that's been pushing to stop this disturbing trend. A trend in some cases caused by economics, manufacturers switching to drugs that bring in more money. In other cases, manufacturing problems leading to plant shutdowns, disrupting the drug supply.
A solution had to happen, and it had to happen now.
And it did. Over the summer, President Obama signed a bill into law that aims to solve the problem. But Julie is still waiting for Doxil, and she's still not in remission. She's now forced to use a drug that's supposed to treat lung cancer.
It's like a shot in the dark. Well, let's try this.
As she waits and fights, Julie is speaking out, telling her story to anyone who will listen.
You don't want anybody to go through what you've been through.
Now, Julie's been told the Doxil for her ovarian cancer should be available to her by next month. Now, this drug shortage has affected clinics, hospitals, emergency rooms, even clinical drug trials. The new law does seem to be helping some. It now requires the drug makers to give a heads up to the FDA if they foresee a shortage. It also makes alternative drugs more easily available. The FDA says the number of shortages has now decreased nearly 50% in recent months.